in the mid-60s. Don't miss out. Get your tickets to Diamond Rio at the Santa Clarita Performing Arts Center, College of the Canyons, Saturday, June 30th at 7 p.m. with special guest Savannah Burrows. Tickets are on sale now. Visit canyonspac.com. That's canyonspac.com.
Financial security will help you live the life you dream. Learn about financial power, the Total Financial Hour. Now higher income strategy. Learn from Arif Halaby. Learn about financial power, the Total Financial Hour. Now Arif has a plan for me. Higher income
Welcome to the Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. That was Jimmy Carnelli. Thank you, Jimmy. Love his voice, guys. Hey, I'm Arif Halaby. The Total Financial Hour comes to you every week at this time. We talk about your family's finances, hopefully how to get out of debt, manage money, plan for your retirement, and focus on things that matter. Because for a lot of folks, some of the financial shows out there are so complicated, or they're for such a small group of people, and they run around and they go into square roots and percentages and what did I hear yesterday? I was talking to a broker, and he was trying to explain to a client, and I couldn't understand. Oh, he said, the diversification of your portfolio, when we take into account the overseas leverage and the options that we use in order to balance. Now, I get all of that, right? Right? When you're a professional, you get it. But why, when you're working with a client, don't you say, hey, what we're trying to do is to put you in different places so that if the market goes down here, you're not going to lose all your money. Because they know that when they use the word correction, it sounds like a pretty good thing. Oh, correction.
All right.
I like to be corrected. Corrected is good. Right? What that means is you lose when the market is, quote, corrected. I don't want you to think that for a lot of folks out there, when you're trying to figure out your financial life, you say, okay, well, I'm going to be corrected, or I'm going to use diversification with the leveraging opportunity and wah. So let's speak English to you. Is that okay? Do I have your permission to keep it simple and easy to understand? So here's what I want to talk about. When you have a state like California, New York, and some others, where their income tax is very high, and all of the other taxes. So here's a little bit of a primer. That means a taste, right? A trailer, if you're a movie fan. When you are a state, you cannot make your own money. Like the federal government can tell the Federal Reserve, give us more money. When you're a state, you can tax your people. So how do you tax your residents? Say, hey, we're going to provide you services. So one of the ways is they have a property tax. So for your property, whether it's incorporated or not incorporated, or whether there's a school district or not, they will go through and raise taxes, 1%, 0.5%, 0.25%. And in doing so, that's one way that they make money for themselves, for the state budget, to pay all those politicians in your capital, in our case, Sacramento. Number two is they will charge a sales tax. So every time you buy something, usually they exempt food and shelter and clothing and that kind of thing. You'll go through and say, some basics, or we'll give you the first 10,000 or 5,000, or we'll give you something like that free, right? So they'll give you a little bit of a discount. But other than that, the sales tax, 3, 4, 5, 6%, 7 or 8. Okay. The third way is income tax. That means if you make money here in the state, and you're a resident of the state, or you make money from the state, then the state of California wants a piece of that. Okay. Now, if you're a different state across the country, usually they choose one of those as the primary, and the others are kind of low. So what you're doing is you're saying, hey, this is our main source of income, and the others are going to be 0 or very low or nothing, right? Very low to nothing. The state of California is high in all three of those. It said we were only going to take an income tax, and property tax was going to be low. And then it said, oh, we're going to take a property tax, but now income tax. Or sales tax is what, 9.25%, 9.5%, 9.75%, depending on where you live. So this means that you're in a position, guys, to be in the highest tax state, not just because of the income, but because everything you touch, the income tax, the property tax, and the sales tax. So each one of those is high. So how are people getting around this SALT, which is the state income tax, if you will, deduction? And here's what that means. Your state and local tax is built on the federal government saying, okay, we know that you've paid tax over in that state. Right? In Nevada, you paid property tax. So we got it. So we're going to give you a little bit of a deduction on your federal income so you don't pay tax on the same dollar twice. Texas is reasonably high in property tax, 2.5%. Some school districts, some new plumbing, they need to replumb or whatever. Sometimes it could be as high as 3%. There is 0 state income tax. But there's a reason that property values in a lot of states that don't have an income tax, property values are kept low. A lot of folks will say, Arif, you can buy a mansion on 6 acres and a pond and a dog named Spot, all for $190,000 in Tennessee.
Sure.
Well, yeah, they don't have an income tax, but they do have a property tax.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the SALT deduction, and how are people finding a creative way around it?
Well, if you've said this for a very long time, who makes the rules?
Rich people, not poor people. Surprise.
Right, and when rich people are able to hire the people that can help them navigate through the rules, then you start to see loopholes and you find ways of being creative. So what some people are doing is they're looking at creating, and for the longest time you've heard rich people talk about trusts, right? They
That's
use
right.
trusts and different types. And look, there's not just one type of trust. There's umpteen types of trusts out there.
Yeah, there's multiple trusts.
And the reason for that is because each one has a different job to do. Your revocable living trust, that's the trust that maybe you and your spouse create, and it has a bunch of different pieces to that, but it basically has a job to do. Other people look at grantor trusts, and they have different types of trusts that do different things. And what that does is it gives them the ability to put their real property into these entities, right? They have to file their own tax return. They have their own sets of rules. But the nice part is you can kind of split that up amongst multiple trusts. And you'll hear people talk about having a series of trusts. And what that does is it just basically puts them in a place where they can start making some of these deductions work in their favor.
That's right. Each one of the trusts, like if you have a living trust, if you've ever been the executor of somebody who's passed away, they had a revocable living trust. That means they put their house in there. They may have created a way for income to go to their children or grandchildren. They've created a series of rules. And the living trust, when somebody is living and it's revocable, they can add things to it, take things away. But the moment they pass away, the trust becomes an irrevocable. That means, like musical chairs, wherever the assets are, wherever everything sits,
right,
at that moment when they pass away, whoever the beneficiaries are, it's over, it's done. You cannot add extra, take away, or do anything like that. So that is very important, that if your objective is to build in who's going to get the money and when, you better you better move chairs when the music is going, right?
That's
like
right.
hot potato. You got the hot potato. As long as the music's going, you can pass that potato around, do whatever you want.
Well, it's funny, like when we're sitting down with a client and we're filling out an insurance policy, for instance, and we start naming beneficiaries, right? And they say, well, can I change that at any time? I say, well, sure, until the music stops. and that's my way of saying, look, as long as you're alive and you can direct this policy and make those changes within as the owner of the policy, then you actually have that luxury. Up until which point you say, this is not going to be anything that is in concrete until you pass away. So what's the point here? Whatever it is that you're doing in the financial world, this is all contingent upon you living in most cases. And when you're putting a plan together, one of the challenges people have is, and we've seen this time and again, Arif, when we review someone's estate plan or their trust. Now, look, that's not something we do on the regular. We don't create trusts for people, but we can review them and say, there might be some points of interest that you want to go back and talk to your estate planner or your attorney, because in some cases we've seen page 1 be contradicted by page 2. Right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you do these online trusts, living trusts, just be very careful, because some of them say you should always do something, and then page 4 says you should never do it.
Exactly.
And when we work with different trust attorneys, I want you to realize, guys, part of the challenge is if nobody fights this, okay, that's not a problem. But if somebody does, if somebody challenges you and says, hey, wait a second, I don't think this is right. My sister really wanted me to have the money and you disinherited me. Or my dad is there's 2 kids in the family and one is getting an unfair share, whatever that equals.
Yeah, and page 6 said if you would disinherit anybody, nobody gets anything. So
that's right.
We've seen crazy things like that.
So this is an important part of your financial life, guys. So how are people that have significant tax getting around this? They're doing what's called a grantor or something called a non-grantor trust, okay, which are taxable entities where the assets are now owned by the trust. And they get more deductions for their properties. Now, here's what you have to do, though. You have to realize that that needs its own tax return. So you are no longer going to be somebody who says, all right, well, I have my regular trust. That's nice. But how am I going to leave the money to my children? That's different. Or I want my first wife's kids to get something, but my second wife's kids and her husband to get nothing, right? If you have his, hers, and mine. And you need to be very careful, especially if you've married a younger wife, usually the guys, right? They usually marry a little bit younger lady. And in doing so, what they have done is, with the life expectancy differences, created almost a guarantee that the other person, the surviving spouse, is probably going to remarry at some time. And or maybe, depending on her age, have other children. So if you want this property, you want this real estate, you should do it in the right way. Now, here's my caution to you. I understand that there are family practice doctors out there. I get it. They do a pretty good job, right? You have a flu, you sprain your ankle, you got a rash, you have a problem with, a headache. They can give you medicine. They can prescribe almost anything. They can certainly refer you to a specialist. I need you to be careful, because if you're dealing with somebody who says, we are a wealth advisor, whatever that means, right? And they'll tell you, we can do stocks, bonds, annuities, insurance, and we can do your living trust, and you have to ask yourself, okay, I get it. You're probably licensed to do everything, and you might even be okay and pretty good at some things. But what are you great at? What are you great at? Don't tell me you can do everything, because they are opposites. You can't be an expert in the brain and neurosurgery and also be an amazing expert in podiatry. They are 2 different parts of the body. They use 2 different systems. It's not a normal thing, right? You can't say, listen, I am the best electrician ever. You're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Man, I can wire everything. I understand everything. I'm an amazing electrician. You say, great. You look at his work and you say, yeah, you're. And then he says, oh, by the way, if you ever need brakes done on your car, I am the guy. You say, well, gosh, it takes a lot of time to be a pretty good electrician. Well, yeah, but I do brakes. That's part of what I do. Are you willing to trust your health and safety of your kids and your family to somebody who does brakes on the weekends because they're, quote, a wealth advisor? Because when you reach age 65 or 70 or whenever you choose to start taking money out, there is no do-over. When you are building the right layers of trust. Now, I'm a certified estate planner. What does that mean? It means I understand trusts and we work with attorneys. There are guys like us that do living trusts. That's what they do for $480, right? We buy a kit. Just so you know, we buy a kit. It's about $500. And the kit has the forms, fill in the blanks. And as long as the guy puts a pretty good form together, and makes an amazing notebook and embosses your name on it.
Does that have leather?
Leather notebook, pleather at least.
Gold letters?
Pleather and
Can I have gold
like.
Goldish letters?
Goldish.
Okay.
Letters.
Now you're talking.
So you might say it's great. Everything works fine. And then when you die, there is no go back. There is no do-over. And now you want to challenge the Trump administration's tax reform that basically tells states, get your stuff together. You have been taxing or overtaxing your residents, and I understand they are residents of your state, but they are also residents of the country. Because you cannot have a formula where you are taxing people every time they turn around for everything. So the federal government says this state and local tax deduction is $10,000. That's it. Now, if you have a husband and wife who might pay $30,000 a year on property tax, listen, go up and down Copper Hill. Go over to Stevenson Ranch, West Ranch. Go over to McMillan Ranch. These are people paying more than $1,000 a month on property taxes. Right? That's $12,000 a year. Plus, that's $1,000. You don't ever pay off property taxes. It's not like, well, in 30 years, or I accelerated the payment, or I'm eventually done, or I almost got it paid off.
Right.
It's never paid off. So what do? You're stuck as an expense forever. So you need to sit down and say, how am I going to write this off on my taxes? Because you used to be able to have unlimited. And the states would say, no problem, the rich will pay for everything. And then Seattle said, oh, no problem, the rich will pay for everything. And then what did the rich do? Said, see ya, we're going to be leaving. So Seattle said, oh, no, we're going to change, right? The head tax that they just changed recently. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So why did they make that change? Well, they didn't want Amazon to leave. They didn't want Apple to leave, and Microsoft, and some of the other entities. Well, California is in the same boat, guys. Nobody has to tell you this. Last week and this week, I added together. 1 out of 2 of my clients are moving when they retire and or as they are retiring out of the state of California. Yesterday, 100% of the ones that I met with are moving outside of California.
My goodness. It used to be what, 1 out of every 5 or 3 people?
One out of 10.
Oh, 1 out of 10.
And for the last few years, it's been 1 out of 3. When I started, it was 1 out of 10.
Uh-huh.
Today, the last few years, it's been 1 out of 3. Today, and for most of this year, it's about half.
Wow.
Do you understand? These aren't poor people that leave. These are people that sell a home for 3, 4, 5, 800,000 equity. They are people that have 4, 5, 6, 800,000 in their retirement accounts. They are people that have a pension or Social Security or income. And they are people that don't generally take a job. And that's what you want. You want lots of those people. That's why Florida thrives. Because people with the pensions from Boston and Detroit, they say, I'm not living in this hole. So they leave. Chicago. Right? How many people die a day in Chicago? Every week you have a Parkland shooting in Chicago. Do you know that? You're so excited. Oh, there's poor youth. Every week you have one in Chicago. But because it's minorities killing minorities, the liberal press is sitting around saying, well, we got to look at those children being taken. You make up stuff. You are paying for these people. Demand more. Demand better. Demand the truth. Because the deduction now that some of these folks are doing, can you afford a second, or third, fourth tax return? Maybe. But I can promise you it's not a $150 H&R Block, $250 grantor trust. That tax return is probably $1,000. But listen, you're going to save money. That's fine. Ideally, you're going to want to generate enough income so that the deduction for the trust, which is about $12,000, just like I get $12,000, my wife gets $12,000, you get $12,000, husband and wife get $24,000, and you get $10,000. So your first, ready for this? Your first $34,000 in income, if you have a house, a property, or live in California, is tax-free. It didn't used to be that way. It used to be the lower income were getting hosed in taxes. Today, the lower and middle income pay nothing in income tax. So do the math. I think you're going to see some changes happening because wealthy people are saying, listen, I'm going to put together a trust, but you know what it costs to set up?
Right. Well, I mean, you're looking at $10,000 and $20,000 sometimes in some of these administrative
to set
costs
up the trust
to get these going. But what happens is now you start to see that they have 1, 2, or 3 of these in a series, and they have different rules so that they don't get lumped together and are looked at as one. And you say, okay, well, why does all this matter? Because that resource that they put out in the beginning, that money that they let go of in the beginning, for the next 5 years is going to probably pay for itself and maybe even sooner. And you think about this for 10 or 20 years in retirement, how much money they're saving by getting those deductions that they would not have normally had if they didn't set it up in a place where, you have a real property set up in different trusts. You have to do this. And you think, well, why does that matter? Because when you do these things, you qualify for exemptions that you didn't otherwise when it was all under one umbrella.
Remember, rich people make the rules, not poor people. They've always made the rules. So don't grab your sign and run on the corner with the 1%ers. Rich people have always made the rules. Whether you were Genghis Khan, you made the rules to benefit your friends and your family. Pol Pot in Cambodia, Allende in Chile. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to history, Google it. Fidel Castro, most of you know him. He made the rules to benefit himself, his friends, his family. Napoleon, to keep it gender neutral. Cleopatra. So when these people make the rules to benefit themselves and their friends and family, the United States wasn't any different except one little clause, and it said the rules apply to everyone. Now, they didn't have to tell you what they were, so you didn't think it applied to you. So you would save up and send your kid off to college and say, go find out the rules and bring it back. Now, for some of you, you couldn't afford to do that. Tough luck. You didn't know the rules. But today, right, these little magic Google devices, they're everywhere. You can find out. Just Google, how do I start a business? Just Google, how do I do a job interview? How do I pay less in taxes? It's not difficult, you guys. It's free when you go to these coffee shops. You can get a free Obama phone. They give them away. No joke, they do. It's been around for many years, but they really ramped up under the last administration. You can go to these free Wi-Fi places. Now Starbucks doesn't kick you out. It doesn't matter what you smell like. Wait until their business starts to shut down. They will change the rules again.
Oh, and by the way, if you think there weren't any jobs, you can actually get paid to sign people up for the free phones.
You figure that out, you guys.
They give you a little canopy and you're out. You're not out in the sun. There's shade.
Right.
They give you water and everything. Yeah.
So realize this. Rich people have always made the rules. That's why these are expensive to set up.
Yeah.
So push your state legislators to be... They want more money from you this time for roads. Don't vote for any of that baloney. They want more money for you for the children. It's for the children.
Well, you have to go back to what you said, Arif. I mean,
Kids.
Think about, when we were talking about taxes, okay, it would go to the roads. Okay, great. And then a decade or more goes by, and then someone raises tax again. Oh, it's for the roads. So what happened to the money that you took from us 10 years ago? Or the lottery? It's for the children.
It's for the kids. For education.
And now they're
for
taking
inner
money
city
elsewhere for education. Well, what happened to the lottery money?
They took the money that was allocated for education. Dollar for dollar, as $1 went out, they pulled in one from the lotto. As one came in from the lotto, I should say, then they pulled one out from education. So the net gain in education was virtually nothing. And they took the money and they said, oh, we can now spend it over here. You're like, are you insane? Somehow, you guys are busy. And you think that with one political party running this state, their job is to find something to distract you. We have $900 billion in debt. Do you realize that's more than some countries? We have $900 billion in debt.
Wow.
The answer is not to tax more. It's probably to spend less. And it's not going to be easy. When we come back, we're going to get into that. We'll see, how can we fix this? How can we make sure we're dealing with an expert, right? If we're dealing with trust, I want you to deal with an attorney that does trust. I don't want you to deal with somebody who claims to be a wealth advisor or whatever other words they want to use, because at the end of the story, the challenge is, I want an expert. I don't want just somebody sitting around saying that they can do everything under the sun. All right, when we come back, I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Girard. Your place for news, talk, and information. You have a question, give us a call at 888-99-RETIRE. That's 888-99-RETIRE. I'm Arif Halaby, Jeff Girard on the Total Financial Hour on AM 1220 and FM 98.1, your hometown station, KHTS.
Little Eye Leaders is the newest preschool in the Santa Clarita Valley. At Little Eye Leaders, our outstanding teachers lead with intellect, perspective, and heart. That means our programs provide a warm, nurturing atmosphere to meet the unique needs of each child. We believe that play is a powerful form of learning for young children. That's why our kids have every opportunity to learn through the magic and excitement of play. Parents, schedule a tour today by calling 303-0400 or online at littleeyeleaders.org. It's never been so easy to have a great night out. Whether it's a date night or girls' night out, experience Pinot's Palette in Valencia or Encino. Order your favorite drink from the bar and paint your very own masterpiece. No art experience needed. Local artists make it easy for you. So you can paint, sip, and listen to great music while creating a one-of-a-kind masterpiece. Fun, relaxing, and memorable. Pinot's Palette. To book your party, go to pinotspalette.com. That's pinotspalette.com.
Hi, Kirk Stinson here with Plumbing by Kirk, your hometown plumber. With another tip, close your sink drain and remove your expensive jewelry when entering the shower to avoid costly plumbing expenses. But if it does happen, shut off the water immediately and call Plumbing by Kirk. We invite you to visit our website for free plumbing advice at plumbingbykirk.com or give us a call, 263-6519. That's 263-6519.
My dad is the best plumber ever. Call Plumbing by Kirk.
Marston's Restaurant has been a Pasadena landmark, voted the best breakfast in California by the Food Network magazine. Discover Marston's Santa Clarita location, open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Marston's also has a fantastic catering menu that adds a delicious twist to any event. And they cater picnic dinners for that memorable romantic date. Experience Marston's on Newhall Ranch Road and McBean, or log on to marstonsrestaurant.com.
If you're in danger of losing your home to foreclosure, you need an expert. Hi, I'm Rich Sherman with Alta Realty. I've helped hundreds of Santa Clarita residents save their homes completely for free. I've got just over 20 years experience and a loan modification success rate of over 80%. I can negotiate better terms with your bank and I can save your home from foreclosure. And again, we do this completely for free. So if you're in any danger, please call me today at 661-714-1400. That number again is 661-714-1400. I'm Rich Sherman with Alta Realty. I'll be happy to help you save your home for free.
Come join me, Arif Halaby, for Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. Every Tuesday at noon, we uncover ways to help you manage your money, get out of debt, and prepare for your retirement. That's every Tuesday at noon on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. Are you not sure if you can retire yet? Listen to us and learn about tips for savings, retirement strategies, and so much more. That's every Tuesday at noon on Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour on your hometown station, KHTS.
Santa Clarita's hometown station.
Now FM 98.1 FM and AM 1220. Your hometown station.
Financial security will help you live the life you dream. Learn about financial power, the Total Financial Hour. Now higher.
Welcome back to the show, the Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Girard, your place for news, talk, and information. Hey, the Total Financial Hour, our job is to hopefully educate you and maybe have a little fun. But sometimes we got to have a serious conversation. Right? I love it when folks from one political world will say, oh, California, even though, yes, we're Democrat run, we have one political party, and they'll get into that whole, I say, okay, yeah, and we're the 7th largest, 6th largest economy in the world, and I don't know whatever formula they're using to determine that. So can't you see we are amazing? Okay, well, let's think about that. We have 10 times more debt than the country of Egypt. We have 20 times more debt than Vietnam. Oh, Arif. Oh, those are... Okay, well, what about Venezuela? That's a mess, right? The numbers we have of 2015, so yes, they're a little old on Venezuela. But we have nearly 10 times more debt than Venezuela, the socialist capital of the world that's falling apart. How about Thailand, South Africa, 6 times, 8 times more debt? You guys, you have to figure out, these are important numbers because when you add the pension debt, when you add the cities, the counties, the states, right, that's an enormous amount of money. And we don't pay for our military. It's not as if the state is like a country that has military and research and development and has to pay for the top stuff that the federal government normally pays for. So if you're going to ride on the coattails of how amazing California is, you have to understand we have twice as much debt as the country of Mexico.
I think we're just the schoolyard bully is what we are. Because when we need more money, what do? We just go force it out of people. We just go tax more people, right? We tell everybody how amazing it is. Look, you don't want to get bullied by me? Come over here. Take my protection. Look, come over here. Seek refuge. And that's what California does. We say, okay, come over here. The sun shines great. Look, we have all these benefits. We have all these wonderful things. So we dangle the carrot. And then the people that actually are here working and trying to get by, We pay the tax. We pay the price for it.
And you ask yourself this: if I have political leaders around the country, around the state, where do they own their vacation homes? Where are they going to retire?
Oh, certainly in California.
Not.
Nah.
I think you should do an asset search because they have to produce their assets every year, and look at the top Democrat leaders that are making all these rules where you can't afford to leave. You can't have a vacation home and you come during the hot summer to the beach, and then in the winter you go to the mountains in Aspen, Colorado, or Idaho or Utah or wherever these folks want to live, and then their residence is in a state where there isn't any income tax. Do a research. Find out, what does Dianne Feinstein own, right? She's the big cheese in the state of California, even more so than Governor Brown. But, you know, he owns places outside of California. What do you think his residence will be the day after he retires? He's not going to be stuck here paying 13, 14% of his income in taxes. So you need to revolt. You know, you see this whole resist. You need to resist. The state of California is falling off into the ocean, and not because of an earthquake, but because it's become the laughingstock of the nation. And when you have a whole system set up where the federal government is trying to say, listen, guys, get your stuff together, because California is needed. We send a lot of tax money, more tax money to the federal government than we get back, as far as a resident goes. But it doesn't matter. They pull more of it out of you in the state and local taxes anyway than you send. We did some review for a client yesterday. They said, well, what if I pull out this much money from my account? We looked at it. 52%.
Oh, in taxes.
In taxes, between state and federal. 52.
So I work, I save money. I go without spending this money for however many years. I have $100,000 in there. I want to take out 48.
Your money.
I give them 52, and I have
to. And
I get to keep 48.
Incredible, huh?
Yeah, that's disgusting.
What's the difference between us and some of these other countries when you try to say, hey, listen, but at least I live in California, I have the weather? Because look at some of the sideline conversations. Why and how do you think they expect you to look around and they'll say things like, oh, but they'll stay for the weather. You're going to stay for the weather. It's called a weather tax. I need you to be careful because in your retirement, there are a few options, and here's one of them. When we talk about guaranteed sources of income, that's a very important part. Jeff, one of the things that we do when people leave, they'll take their pension money in a lump sum. And we take that and we put that into an account that in turn gives them a guaranteed retirement income and access to the principal.
That's right, because in most cases what you're going to find is if you worked for a company for many years and you've got this big bucket of dollars with your name on it, the pension is basically irrevocable. Kind of like how we talked about earlier. That word means that's not changeable. Once you say, I elect this pension option, this payment option, that goes for as long as you live. But what if you died 10 minutes later? You took one payment. Did you choose the option where some of it would go to a spouse or a beneficiary? No, in most cases, people don't. They want the highest amount that they can. But when you have the option to take that lump sum, they say, look, kid, we'll get you out of our pocket. We know you're young and healthy. You're going to live for another 40 years. Take this lump sum instead of the pension payments, and you go do what you want with it. Now, some people are smart, and they say, wow, here's $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $1 million sometimes. How do I manage that? Well, they go and they put it in a place where, like Arif's talking about, you can have that same guaranteed amount of monthly income. It's just your pension this time. And when you pass away, it goes to your family, no matter when it is. And if you need to take a little bit more out, you can do that. Because how many times, Arif, have we seen someone, gets a nice pension, right? $4,000 or $5,000 a month. But, in retirement, we get bored. We spend money. We buy an RV. We buy an extra this or that. And all of a sudden, our expenses start creeping up. And next thing you know, we need more money.
How about a client that worked for 27 years at Granada Hills Hospital? Met with her yesterday. She said, Arif, the most amazing thing? At 27 years working for Granada Hills Hospital as an RN, her pension she got because it collapsed, and the pension is owned by the entity, by the employer, not by you. And they said, well, here's $60,000. So 27 years of working, she receives nothing. They took all the pension. They gave her $60,000, and they said, see you later. Now, if you started the job and said, hey, here's the game that I'm playing. I'm going to get paid a little bit more money. I am not going to have a pension because what does a hospital know about managing money for retirement, right? That's not their job. And you say, instead, what I want to do is I am going to manage, I'm going to go to experts. I'm going to go to an expert attorney and have them draw up my trusts. I'm going to go to an expert CPA and have them manage my taxes and tax forms. And I'm going to go to a financial expert that specializes in income for retirement. And I'm going to have them help me with that pension conversation. That's a pretty darn good way to do things. Anytime anybody tells you they can do everything and they can make you rich, ask them one question. Why are you still here? If you can make people rich, why didn't you make yourself rich? Remember, rich people make the rules to benefit themselves and their family and their friends. If you're that guy, Mr. and Mrs. Wealth Advisor, why are you still working? I love people, puppy dogs, and walks in the park. Got it. So why are you here at 7 o'clock at night? Why are you here at 9 o'clock in the morning? Why are you driving a 14-year-old car? I mean, get it, right? Okay, 14, oh, that's fine. It's healthy. It's strong. But if you're wealthy, and I said, oh, there's two choices, buddy. You can have a fancy new whatever you like, or a 14-year-old car with seats that sag because, there's crayon marks and Cheetos underneath the back seat. What would you choose? And if you say I'd take the 14-year-old car because I'm wealthy, but I think it's a smart financial decision, I'm okay with that. But I probably wouldn't invest with you because I'd say that guy's got something missing. I don't say go out and buy the newest, fanciest car. But remember, you told me you were wealthy because you could make people rich. You need to ask yourself, why are you, your mom, dad, sister, brother, cousin, people, friends and family, why are they still working? See, our job is not to make you rich. That's not it. We're not going to do that. I'm never going to tell you that. It would be a lie. Even when I was Mr. Financial Stockbroker guy, mutual funds, right? Even when we did all that stuff, broker-dealer stuff. Our job is simple. It's to keep you from going broke. That's it. Get reasonable gains. Keep things simple, easy to understand. Protect your principal. Every time you earn interest, let's go up. Let's make some money. The market's down, we just stay the same. We don't go backwards. So there's a conversation there of protecting your principal and keeping things in a safe place. I just don't want you to lose.
Well, and that's a simple way of putting it by saying that your job over the course of your working life, that's what's going to make you rich. The decisions that you make, your financial habits, that will make you rich. But there's a place at which you reach in your life that you kind of cap out and you say, look, I'm done running the race. I've done all that I can do from a financial perspective, from a financial aspect in building my wealth. At this point, it's time to turn the corner, preserve what I have, and make that lifestyle shift. When you start trading your time for money and you start living off of your assets, it has to be protected.
Well, here's a great conversation. Yesterday, I had a conversation with the lady who was a nurse. And she said, Arif, I have $1 million in her stock brokerage account. I said, wow, that's great. She said, well, my mom passed away and I was an only child and I inherited a bunch of real estate. We sold it, so I have cash. Okay. So she has $1 million in her stockbroker. I said, well, how long ago did you open that account? She said, well, I opened it about 7 years ago. Okay. And how much did you open it with? She said $1 million. I said, well, how much have you taken out? She said, I've taken out about $30,000. Okay. So she's taken out $30,000. In all of these years, what were the fees? You ready for this? She was paying a little over 2% in fees. That's $20,000 a year, whether the market's up, whether it's down, whether she made money, whether she lost money. So really the account made somewhere in the neighborhood of about $170,000. $140,000 went in fees, $30,000 went to her pocket, and the $1 million machine is still there making about the same. And I said, well, when you ask your advisor about it, what did he say? Well, he said you're in it for the long haul. And don't invest with an index in mind. You should be working on your purpose. I said, well, what's your purpose? And she said, it's certainly not to make him a monthly income of almost $2,000 a month.
Wow.
We'll call that advisor Joe, for example. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. We're going to continue the Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Girard. We'll get into some more options. How do you figure out your life? right? How do you know how much to budget for retirement? I think we may have an answer for you, and it could help. Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Girard on AM 1220 and FM 98.1 KHTS.
Tucked away in Canyon Country is an upscale, intimate, unforgettable dining experience. Taste the wonders of Italy at Piccola Trattoria. This gem of a restaurant is our valley's best-kept secret, but not for long. The secret will be out once you've tasted their homemade pastas, pizzas, ossobuco, or their scrumptious sausage, fresh seafood, or steaks. Better save room for dessert. Your table will be fighting over who gets the final bite of their heavenly tiramisu. Piccola Trattoria, off Sierra Highway on Dolan Way. Your unforgettable dining experience.
Drugs or alcohol abuse can tear a family apart. In Santa Clarita, just like everywhere else, it's an epidemic. The Way Out Recovery is here to help. Call them now at 296-4444 or visit them on the web at thewayoutrocoveryscv.com. The Way Out offers outpatient treatment for adolescents, adults, and family members. The Way Out is compassionate, caring, professional, and confidential. You and your family don't have to suffer any longer. Call the Way Out Recovery now, 296-4444, or visit thewayoutrocoveryscv.com and make an appointment. Asking for help is the first step.
Have you heard about Assistance League Retail Store? For a good time and a great deal and bargains that are an amazing steal, there are friendly volunteers ready to share a smile. So come on in and stay a while. We take donations on gently used goods, and proceeds from our sales stay in the neighborhood. So for a great buy and a special find, come visit our store anytime. Assistance League Resale Store located at 24369 Main Street in downtown Newhall.
Real stories from the Aquarium of the Pacific.
I first came to the aquarium in 1998 on a kindergarten field trip. The aquarium inspired me to learn more about the oceans and how to best protect the environment.
I just never got the connection. I just thought, oh, look, this is just water I can play in, but the aquarium was so much more than that.
Someone throws the buoy and they tell Parker to go find it. He brings it back to me, and as he comes out of the water, on the buoy it says, "Will you marry me?"
I remember one of my students being surprised by her father, who was a diver in the tank.
Our son Liam fell in love with the Aquarium of the Pacific.
It's a great way to spend more time with my dad.
When I was 6 years old and I saw that amazing big blue whale, my life was forever changed.
I remembered some kids touching the bat rays and going, wow.
Come celebrate the Aquarium of the Pacific's 20th anniversary. Meet some old friends and create aquarium stories of your own. Call 888-SHARKS-2 or visit aquariumofpacific.org.
The Aquarium of the Pacific. Santa Clarita's hometown station.
Now FM 98.1 FM and AM 1220. Your hometown station.
Financial security will help you live the life you dream.
Hey, folks, welcome back. The Total Financial Hour. I'm Arif Halaby. That's Jeff Girard. Your family's financial life. Give us a call at 888-99-RETIRE, 888-99-RETIRE. I know we had a question in the chat room there on the grantor trust, and should you have one or revert back to non-grantor. I'm going to encourage you to speak with your attorneys, specifically because I think the attorneys that specialize in trust, that understand them, they're always up to date on the laws. And that's what the real caution is. If you try to set up a trust on your own, you might do well, especially if you're an only child and your parents are an only child and your kids are an only child, then you're not going to have a lot of people argue and fight. So things generally go smooth, much smoother anyway. But when you have your kids, my kids, our kids, you have second marriages involved, you have stepchildren, you have ex-wives and husbands, and you're the beneficiary and you're the trustee, it can get very convoluted. And telling you now, after 22 years in business, in fact, last week was 22 years in business, right?
Wow.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah.
After the last 22 years of business, I have seen great, it's just me and my sister. And then he drives from Arizona to Montrose with a U-Haul truck, breaks into the house. He brings a locksmith and says, it's my house, because his name was similar to his father's. So he showed the ID, showed a piece of mail, right? Because, there's junior and senior and different middle names. So the locksmith opened the house. The guy loaded up the U-Haul, drove away.
Oh.
So the sister said, we're supposed to get half. That's what the trust said. But he did the sue me. Well, she knew she didn't have He knew she didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that when you have a trust done, you have attorneys. And I don't like it when you have your kids, oh, my oldest son is the smart one, or my oldest daughter, she's the responsible one. I don't want those people being the ones that make the decisions. I want somebody else. Why? Because I want them to hate that person, not each other, right? If you want your grandkids to play together and your great-grandkids to know each other, then do not put your child as a trustee or an executor to make all the decisions and distribute the property. I don't think, right? Check with your attorney. Maybe they'll have a different opinion, but I've never seen it work.
Well, and you have to think about this. It's typically not just that person. You have, let's say you have two people, right? And you have the oldest child is the responsible one. Well, do you think they're married? Maybe.
Oh, you're right.
And
That's
then
right.
the person that they're supposed to kind of oversee, hey, your mom says, always just take care of your brother. Make sure he's always got what he needs. Well, do you think that brother ever got married? It's never just a one-on-one conversation. You always have these outside forces, these little voices chirping in someone's ear. It might not even be a spouse, but that's the first place we see things kind of go awry.
Yeah, especially when you hear, don't let your sister, she always tries. Don't let her say that to you. Your brother's always trying to pull one over on you. So listen, you can do what you want, but I'm just telling you.
Does he just think you're not that smart?
Yeah, gosh. And you say, really?
Wait a minute.
Wait, that's not. And you get all.
It's just about planting that seed of doubt.
And this is important when we were talking about wanting to plan for retirement. Here are a couple of ideas that I think can work towards your development of whether or not now is the time to retire. Number one, you look at the guaranteed sources of income you have coming in. It might be Social Security. It could be a pension. It could be a certain percentage of your overall assets, how much you're selling. It could be rental property, right? It could be whatever it is. You add up those dollars. And when you add up those dollars, it comes up to a number that says, this is how much I have coming in. On the other side, you say, what do I have to spend each month? Now, you might say, gosh, that's a budget. I don't know. I don't want to add up every time I swipe my card at the coffee shop or every time I go to the restaurants. All you do is say, what is my net check? Oh, okay, I make $8,000 a month after taxes and everything. I receive $8,000. How much do you put in your savings account that stays there and you don't touch after the end of the month? $2,000? All right, well, then there it is. You spend $6,000. I don't need to necessarily know where every dollar goes to. Just what is it that you save? What is it you spend? Now, if you say, I spend everything that I make, and I only save once in a while, but usually I don't, well, then we say, if your net check is $8,000 and you spend $8,000, then that's what you need in retirement. So you start chipping away at that. Okay, Social Security for him and for her. That's going to be $4,000 a month. Okay, now you need to find $4,000. Say, okay, a pension is going to be $3,000 a month. Okay, now you have a pension. You might say, oh, now I have a rental property that's going to give me $1,500 a month. Now you're past the $8,000 number, but remember, this is pre-tax money. So you need to meet with your CPA and find out what the big number needs to be so that after taxes, you can end up with a certain amount to spend. Now, one of the first questions I ask you when you come into my office is, do you plan on retiring in the state of California? And that's where I'm telling you, that's when people say, no way, or we already have a house, or we've been looking. Somebody yesterday says, oh, we've been looking. Every time we take a vacation, we look at a different state. We travel, we drive, we don't fly. We drive to the state, we drive around, we look at, so we've narrowed it down to a couple of places. It was Idaho and Texas were the two that he narrowed it down. And I said, oh, that's great. He said, but you have no idea how fast real estate is selling in Idaho. I said, well, no, I don't know much about that. But he said, oh my gosh, it's going crazy. And they don't plan on retiring for a little bit. But he said, should I buy now? Well, I don't know. It's up to you. But you've got to realize that if that's a place you're going to end up, you have to know what the rules are for that state. You have to know how to manage life in that state. And maybe you do a trial. You see, I like practice retirements. That means you actually go to a place and you rent. What side of town do you live on? Should you live over here or over there? Where's your doctor? Where's your dentist? Where's your church? Where's your friends? Which way does traffic go? So if you're going one way in the morning and you're going with traffic, you might as well either wait another hour or leave earlier, or why don't you just live over on that side? If in the morning you're going to be on that side of town, and that's the direction traffic's flowing, why don't you go over there? By renting, you'll get a chance to have a feel where the weather comes and goes. Here's a good example. Jeff, you know I used to live up in Pine Mountain Club.
Yes, sir.
I lived there for 7 years. Beautiful place. We had a nice house. It was basically somebody's cabin probably, but it was our home.
Sure.
2-bedroom, 2-bath, little place on a quarter of an acre. We didn't have anybody on either side of us. So a little bit of land and lots of trees. But I was on what's called the shady side of the mountain. I didn't even know that existed. And we moved in July or June. The winter time comes, and the sun, we only got direct sunlight maybe 4 hours a day during 2 or 3 months of the winter. Because we were so close up to the side of the mountain, we didn't realize that, which meant when it was rainy or cold or snowy and icy, we were driving in the snow and the ice a lot more than the folks on the other side of the mountain, which is where the full-time residents live. But it was also where the more expensive homes were.
Sure.
So the reason we didn't buy over there is we said, oh, here's our budget. They said, oh, well, you got to go over to this side. Okay. We didn't know we were giving that up. Had we rented there, we probably would have said, oh, well, let's save up a little bit more money and buy on the shady side because that's where the full-time residents live. It's lower in elevation. It's flatter, so you're not trying to drive up a driveway or down a driveway in the snow.
So instead, you had 6 months of snow on the ground.
Well, not quite, but about 4 months. But we actually had, because my house gave 100% shade to the driveway for maybe the last 20 yards or so, because it was a long, long driveway. So the last 20 yards or so was 100% shade during the wintertime for maybe 4 months. Well, you make a mistake once, driving on the snow, thinking, oh, well, I can drive on it because I have a 4-wheel drive, and you drive into the garage. Well, what did you do with fluffy, air-filled snow?
You just packed it into ice.
That's right, and it's now become ice, and it was solid ice for months, and I had to chip away at it, with the big shovel and a. So the key is practicing retirement. Live as if, both in income and in lifestyle. Even while you're still working, try to live within that budget. It'll give you a chance to see if maybe the right time to retire is sooner rather than later. Thanks for listening. I'm Arif Halaby, and that's Jeff Girard. You can always go to hometownstation.com, click on Total Financial Solutions, or go to tfswealth.com. That's us, tfswealth.com, or 888-99-RETIRE. That's 888-99-RETIRE. I'm Arif Halaby. Thanks for joining us to the Total Financial Hour.
KHTS.